Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 332B of the All Dolphins podcast. And if you're wondering, why is it 332B? Because apparently I forgot how to count, and we never did an episode 331. We went from 330 to 332. So I guess this has to be 332B. I don't know. I don't want to, and maybe 331, and we'll go back in reverse. Who cares? It's the episode for Tuesday, August 13th. 2024, joined again by regular guest co-host Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Perk, we got to stop meeting like this.
We do. I mean, we see each other twice a day. I mean, I don't feel right about this.
It's too much. On days when I see you more than I see my wife, something's wrong. I mean, I love my job and all that, and I love you, Perk, but something's wrong.
People are going to start talking, Poop.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, again, as was the case yesterday, an awful lot to discuss on this particular episode, including starting with the roster move made right before heading out to practice. In fact, it was made while I was on my way to the Baptist Health Training Complex, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who was in the same situation where, lo and behold, the Dolphins made a move, released defensive tackle Tyer Tart, and we'll talk about Mr. Tart, who's probably very sour right now. But sweet tarts. Okay, sorry. Along with that, we had some very interesting comments from Tua Tagovailoa after practice on Tuesday. Perk and I are going to duke it out. I don't know if it's going to be Rock'em Sock'em Robots about what we saw at practice today, because there are a couple of things where him and I were not exactly like this simpatico. Yep. We have also some Chase Claypool news, clarification on the IR rules. We also have on my list interesting updates, not gigantic, but interesting nonetheless, involving Teron Armstead, Cam Smith, and Odell Beckham Jr. Most of them positive. One kind of might leave you scratching. So an awful lot to dive into. I don't know where I would go with a history lesson for 332B. I don't have a great story about a hotel room ending in 32B. Perk, if you by all means chime in if you have something there.
No, I really don't.
Well, that makes for some good podcasting here. Come on, make something up on the spot. Okay, fine. We'll skip the history lesson for that. No, we'll do a hat tip since it's a 32 hat tip. We've discussed this before, but hat tip to Kenyon Drake for his NFL career. He's recently retired. Of course, will always have a place in Dolphin lore for his role in the Miracle in Miami. And did you ever notice the guy who came this is a great trivia question, the player on the New England defense who came the closest to actually being able to tackle Drake once he got the pitch from Devontae Parker? Any idea?
It's got to be Gronk, right?
No, Gronk wasn't even close. Wow. There's one guy who actually got his mitts on Kenyon Drake. Nope. In fact, played for the Dolphins, made a lot of friends in the Dolphins media. He was beloved by the Dolphins media, which was really saddened when he was gone after only 1 year. I kid. Come on. Kyle Van Noy.
Oh.
Kyle
yeah.
Van Noy.
I wasn't there for Van Noy. I was writing news, yeah.
Oh, you were writing news. Yeah, Kyle Van Noy was a little, what's the word?
Standoffish?
Sandpapery in his dealings with the media. Let's put it that way. A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. It was not again, I joke when he left, it wasn't exactly a whole lot. Oh my God, no. Let's just say he was never a front runner for the Good Guy Award in 2020. So let's put it that way.
Can I use this line for all the Seinfeld fans? Love the Drake.
Love the Drake?
Yeah, there was an episode. It's the Seinfeld fans will know it. It's not even worth explaining, but the Seinfeld fans will like it.
Okay. And I did watch a lot of episodes in it, but I remember like Spongeworthy. I remember the Soup Nazi.
There was the episode where they had bought a big screen TV for this couple, and the guy's name was the Drake. And then the Drake and his girlfriend broke up, and they gave the TV to charity, the big screen TV. I think that was the same episode where was that the same episode where Kramer and George bought the wheelchair for the woman, the cheap wheelchair, and she went rolling down the hill because it didn't have any brakes. Anyway, we digress. Love the Drake.
Okay, good. Love the Drake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I watch a lot of the episodes, not religiously, but some of them. Okay, so let's get back to Dolphins land here. Tyer Tart, And I'm going to admit it. I'm going to fess up. At the time he signed, I ranked him pretty high among all of the offseason veteran rankings because I thought he had a very, very high upside, which I think he still does. There was low risk. It's going to cost the Dolphins like $500,000 on the salary cap. At $400,000 signing bonus and 167,000 signing bonus, 400,000 guaranteed salary. It's a low investment for a guy. And if you're questioning my sanity here, by all means, won't be the first time that podcast followers do this. If you look at his ratio of tackles for loss per snap last year, it was among the best among all NFL defensive tackles. So the dude can play. However, he doesn't always play. And we haven't gotten word. We haven't talked to Mike McDaniel since the move was announced. He's speaking to the media on Wednesday. I'm sure we'll ask him, and I'm sure we're not going to get dude was lazy, took too many plays off, anything like that. But the question we'll be asking, it's going to be a very politically nice answer where, burn bridges, you don't take shots at the guy on the way out. But again, when the Dolphins signed him, his last stint with the Tennessee Titans ended badly, and there was word coming out of Tennessee that he was a guy who did not necessarily play all out the whole way.
And for the Dolphins to release an interior defensive lineman, knowing that they need interior defensive linemen, something had to go sideways there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to when the truth finally surfaces. Like you said, McDaniel's going to be nice. He'll paint a nice picture. It was a numbers game, blah, blah, blah. But when you release a veteran defensive lineman, somebody who has been productive in the league in the Dolphins situation where they need veteran defensive linemen, something happened there.
No, without question. And we saw him, and based on the observations from the stands at the Baptist Health Training Complex, kind of looked to me like a guy who may not have been at the peak of his physical conditioning, is the way I would put it. And you mentioned what the Dolphins have a defensive tackle or interior defensive line, however you want to call it. But they have Calais Campbell, who's a stud. They have Zach Sealer, who's a stud. But beyond that, it's the guys they signed in free agency, which was a lot of guys whose names we just and now on top of that, if you look at the nose tackle position, Benito Jones has been out for the last couple of practices. We don't know what's going on. Neville Gallimore's been out as well, another interior defensive lineman. And it's not like they can afford to just arbitrarily just dismiss somebody. So again, something was amiss. I got called from a couple of my fellow publishers on the on SI network asking me about Tart and what happened and, could he be good? Again, there's a reason why somebody's lot in the NFL is the way it is. It's not by accident. There's nobody who holds personal grudges,
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. And look, I want to see what happens here at interior defensive line because Poop, I'm not sure that you have adequate interior defensive linemen. I'll say that.
I agree. They have a bunch of guys who like here and there have shown things during practice, but I don't know that there's anybody you go, yeah, that guy's a keeper. So
right.
That's a little bit problematic. Let's see where we're going to jump to next. We are going to jump to next before practice started. Also, quick Chase Claypool update. I know he doesn't play for the Dolphins anymore, but he was somebody who drew a lot of interest when the Dolphins acquired him from the Bears in the trade last year. I know a lot of fans were like, that guy's going to make a difference. This is our big size wide receiver. Didn't happen. And now he has landed on IR with the Bills. So he's done for the season. And I checked out with some friends I have in Buffalo, and what the word I got from him and his performance in camp to that point was meh. So, and I mentioned the IR rules as they apply. So here's a quick clarification on this. As we've discussed before, teams have the right to designate two players who are not going to be on initial 53 designated to return from injured reserve at that time. But those have to be guys that you do this on the day of the cuts to 53. So anybody who's been put on IR before that is done for the year. It's the same old IR rules. That includes rookie 7th-round pick Taj Washington. That includes Grayson Murphy. That includes Cam Brown. And that includes Keon Smith. So those guys are not playing for the Dolphins in 2024. Technically, they could get released with an injury settlement. You have to set out a certain number of weeks related to the amount of the settlement, plus 4 weeks if you're going back to the same team, and then they could come back. But for all practical purposes, those guys are done for 2024. And in the case, at the very least, in the case of Taj Washington and Grayson Murphy, this is not a bad outcome for the Dolphins because they get to hang on to him for another year, and chances are they might have had a tough time making the 53.
Yep. And it's good that you got that clarification, because we always wonder during the season and during the playoffs and, during training camp, what's the rules here. So good for you, Poop. Good for getting that.
Oh. And then the rest of the rules on those is teams, again, will get 8 total. If you designate somebody during the cuts to 53 as being designated to return, they'll count against your 8. Same player can come back twice from IR, but each time it counts as one of the 8 returns. And once you get to the playoffs, you carry over what you have left, plus you get 2 more for being in the playoffs. So those are your, and then the PUP rules, which right now would apply to Odell Beckham Jr., and that's going to lead to the next transition, Isaiah Wynn and Bradley Chubb. Right now they're on active PUP. They count against the 90-man limit. And though, again, I have to do this, Dolphins have 91 because Beryl Matos is Dominican, part of the International Pathway Player Program, so he doesn't count. He's going to be in the practice squad the whole year. Won't count. Dolphins right now are at 89 on the regular roster because they didn't make an accompanying move when they released Tart. Totally lost my train of thought here. So where was I?
Going to OBJ.
I was going to OBJ. Oh, no, the PUP rules. So right now they're on active PUP. Once the moves to 53 occur, so the Dolphins then either have to move those guys to the active roster, or they have to move them. They can technically release them, or they have to move them to reserve PUP, in which case then they have to set out the first 4 games of the season. So, and right now Perk and I are kind of in agreement. Bradley Chubb's going to be in that case. Isaiah Wynn, we still don't know. And Mike McDaniel said last Saturday, I think it was, or Friday night after the game, or last week, that it would still might be a week before he gives us a timetable. So I'm thinking not necessarily looking great for him being able to avoid starting the PUP. And that brings us to OBJ. And the comments that Tua made about OBJ after practice were kind of, and I may have to pull them up while you talk. Give me your thoughts on this as to should we temper our expectations in terms of what OBJ can provide, particularly early in the season, as I look up those quotes.
Well, I will say that Tua's comments were a little bit unsettling because from what I gathered, Tua was saying that I haven't worked with OBJ, and so I'm going to need time. I don't know how he likes to run patterns. I don't know how I'm going to be throwing him these balls. So this is going to take some time. My thought, I'm getting all choked up here, Poop. It's a very emotional topic for me. My thought is this is not as dire as we could make it because, number one, OBJ is not a top target. He should be. The plan was for him to be a top target, but right now we see Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the old standards, Jonnu Smith getting in a little bit more. They're trying to throw the ball a little bit more to Devon Achane. So there are plans to involve the slot receiver, but you don't necessarily need him for the first, say, 3-4 weeks, maybe up to the bye. To me, the season really gets serious kind of after the bye, and then it's really hyper serious at Thanksgiving. But I think because you have because OBJ is a veteran and he should be able to slot in fairly easily. This is not a rookie we're talking about. And because his place in the offense, he's not a number 1 or number 2 target. I think you do have some time here, but considering OBJ was considered an upgrade to the offense, right? Without him, you're kind of in the same place you've been the last 2 years. That's a little discouraging.
Yeah, no question. And the other part about it is, what's going on with the dude? Because we're looking at a guy who the implication, the suggestion was it was going managing something minor during off season, and then boom, he doesn't practice the entire off season, and now we're halfway. We're toward the end of training camp and still on PUP. So don't know exactly what's going on here. So here's the Tua quote, which I don't know, left me, like you said, a little troubling. And the question was, what gives you confidence that you guys, Tua and OBJ, in terms of chemistry, will be able to hit the ground running when he comes back? And Tua's answer was, I'll tell you what, I think it's more confidence for him once he's able to start running and catching balls and seeing it in that sense with guys across from him. Then also it's a whole other thing to do that. And then also he has to know where to line up and then what that play is, if he has a motion or if he doesn't have a motion. So that's where I think it will be one of the tougher parts. And it's not just for him, but for everyone and anyone trying to get to know the playbook and this offense. It is tough. So we'll take that as it may. So that would be, I'd say, discouraging, but less positive development in terms of what's going on with players. More positive would be what happened with Savon Ahmed, who was back at practice on Tuesday. And this is where I can just hear a couple of fans going, doesn't matter, he's not making a team anyway. To that, I would say probably fair. Cam Smith also was back at practice, did some work on 11 on 11. That was good to see. Ethan Bonner is still out, with our good friend Barry Jackson reporting he's dealing with a concussion. Hopefully it doesn't keep him out of the lineup very long, and then they can have a battle for that fourth cornerback spot, I would say, behind Jalen Ramsey, who also is still out. Hasn't practiced all week. Kendall Fuller, Kader Kohu would be your nickel, and then who's the number 4 and 5. I still like those rookie free agents, Isaiah Johnson, Jason Maitre, and maybe Storm Duck as well a little bit. And then the biggest one is Teron Armstead, who did 11 on 11 reps for the first time. I'm not even counting what he did on Monday because he did walkthrough stuff on Monday. He didn't do a full load along with the first team offensive line, but just the fact that he was out there, again, it's a step toward getting him more involved and ready for the start of the regular season. Am I overselling that, Perk, or are you feeling the same way about it?
Nope, I feel the same way about it. Teron, there's no reason to put Teron out there. We know what he can do. We know that he's responsible. We know he keeps himself in tip-top shape. Teron Armstead is going to be fine. Let me ask you two things real quick, Poop. Number one, on OBJ, you know how we saw him last week out there running with Jalen Phillips, running hard, running full speed, running like 40, 50-yard sprints, catching some passes in certain cases. We saw Jordan Poyer doing the same thing. And since that time, Jalen Phillips has been activated. Jordan Poyer is still out there running hard, but OBJ has kind of disappeared from public view. Do you think that maybe OBJ had a setback?
You're putting me on the spot here. Breaking news. OBJ has a setback. Why it matters.
Just a question.
2024 headlines. It's entirely possible. I don't know that for a fact, and I'm certainly not saying it out there. But if you connect the dots, yeah, there's something there that it's keeping him from, being able to practice because again, it's a long time. Like for example, you compare him to Bradley Chubb. We haven't seen Bradley Chubb do any running whatsoever.
Right.
He will show up every once in a while to watch practice. Isaiah Wynn, I don't know the last time I've set eyes on Isaiah Wynn. So I'm assuming he's rehabbing inside, and it tells you the fact that you don't see him, the fact it's still not close. And then with OBJ, it looked like he was on his way back. And then, I was very disappointed when, was it Monday, when Mike McDaniel told us that Jalen Phillips would be activated off PUP, and then he was asked about OBJ, and then goes, no, it'll be at least another week, and then it'll be week to week.
Yep. The other question, and now you made me think of another one. I was going to ask about Cam Smith and taking up a roster spot, right? You're not cutting Cam Smith. He's not getting through. So he's going to take up a roster spot from a capable cornerback, right? Maybe a more capable cornerback.
Maybe a better cornerback, and this is where, of course, if you would talk anybody on the record, it'd be no. The roster spots are won on merit. If you think that Cam Smith doesn't have a roster spot almost sealed because he's a second-round pick, Sorry, but that's just the way life is. Speaking of, how's this for a transition? Speaking of second round picks, there was a second round pick in 2021 by the name of Liam Eichenberg, for whom the Dolphins surrendered. Pretty good, right? What is that? Segways are for kids.
I like that.
Thank you. If you don't know what that is, it's a Trix cereal commercial for those old enough to know this. For player for whom the Dolphins surrendered a third round pick to the New York Giants, a future for third round picks, so the Dolphins could move from 40 or 50 to 42 in that 2021 draft to take Liam Eichenberg. So the Dolphins obviously thought highly of him. But here's the thing. Now he's back at center again. He's not happy about it. He's a team guy who is not going to bitch publicly while also being honest to the media and saying, he basically said the Dolphins know my preference, and he told us he preferred guard. This is a guy who's played every position on the offensive line. Last year, he starts the game. Then the perfect example, starts the game against Tennessee at right guard. Connor Williams gets injured. Oh, Liam, why don't you move over to center in the middle of the game? We'll put somebody else at right guard. Why? Because the Dolphins didn't have another answer at center, and apparently they still don't. And I just wrote a column on this on Miami Dolphins on SI at si.com/NFL/Dolphins. Like, this is for Dolphin fans. If Liam at some point sucks in a game, keep in mind what he's doing for the team and how much the team keeps yanking him around from spot to spot to spot, never letting him settle at one position before we criticize him harshly. And this is not to say that he doesn't deserve criticism at times. Yes, he had some really bad games last year. But this is a guy also, he's heading in his contract year. Is the book totally closed on Liam Eichenberg being a front-end starter in the NFL at any point, which is why make the most use of him right now, and that involves position flexibility? Or do the Dolphins owe it to themselves, stick him at right guard, let him stay there, see what kind of NFL guard he can become? Because how long has he played guard, continuously, and then find a different answer at center?
Yeah, Poop, you did a really, really nice job on that column today. I really like reading it.
Okay, fine. Fine. You'll come back for more.
See how I work the system. I wrote about Liam also, and here's my thing on Liam: a guy who everybody in the media likes, nice guy, not a Pro Bowl player. Let's not kid ourselves. But here's the thing: this is an institutional failure. Like, if you're the Dolphins, how do you not have a better plan at backup center? Like, how is this possible? So instead of ripping Liam, let's turn some blame on Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier for bad planning. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Poop, in the years that Chris Grier, that Mike McDaniel has been here, the only true center that you had is Aaron Brewer, right? Because Connor Williams was a converted guard. Liam Eichenberg is converted guard. Dan Feeney didn't make it. Jack Driscoll told us he's never played center before. Robert Jones, Lester Cotton, like, these guys are not centers. They're guys that you're making play center. To me, center is a big enough, important enough position that you should have a center. Get a center. And fans understand this. The blame goes to Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier. Stop ripping Liam Eichenberg.
Damn, I like it. And for those who are wondering, why didn't the Dolphins just re-sign Connor Williams? Because there was no way in hell Connor Williams was re-signing with the Dolphins unless they massively overpaid him, or he had no other options, because Connor Williams don't necessarily think he's real happy with the Dolphin organization, as some players like to say it after what happened last year when Connor Williams really wanted a contract extension. They couldn't agree to terms. And guess what? From Connor's standpoint, he's going to look at it as a Dolphins and give me what I wanted. And then he got hurt, and it killed his market value in free agency. So, again, unless they're going to overpay him or they had no other options, Connor Williams was not going to re-sign with the Dolphins.
Poop, let me ask you this, because we talked about OBJ kind of disappearing from sight. Aaron Brewer has disappeared from sight. He was not on the sideline for the game. He wasn't at practice. Do you think that could mean that he had surgery or requires surgery on his hand?
Well, and this is where I'm going to point out that I don't know if you were around for these days. It used to be that if a player had surgery, we would get a press release.
Mm-hmm.
Such and such player underwent, and by the way, shockingly enough, it was always successful surgery. It's always successful.
Right.
But we would get a press release announcing those. That practice has completely stopped. Again, I don't want to speculate.
Right.
I don't know. The fact that he's not even present at practice is a little troublesome because we're now a little less than 4 weeks away from the start of the regular season. And are we looking at the possibility that Eichenberg is going to be your starting center against Jacksonville on September 8th? And then this is where I'm saying that Eichenberg is getting jacked a little bit. Here's what happened. Tell me this hypothetical. Okay. Eichenberg starts at center against Jacksonville, which means they have somebody else working at right guard the entire time. That player starts at right guard against Jacksonville, performs well. Aaron Brewer comes back from his injury. Sorry, Liam, we can't make a switch at right guard. The guy's playing well. Sucks to be you. Again, now you'll go back to being a backup. I mean, and it's like, yes, the team comes first, but
right. Yeah, you brought that up in your column. That's a very good point. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, Liam could get jerked around here. And look, Dolphins fans, I don't want to bring this up, but game 2 is Buffalo.
But you're going to anyway.
But I'm going to. Game 2 is Buffalo, and we remember what happened last time Liam started against Buffalo, that 48-20 loss, and he allowed 2 sacks. Now, that was his first start at center, and he has come a long way since then. He improved a lot last season at center. Connor Williams got hurt during the Denver game. I think it was a groin or something like that. But then Liam had to step in for a little bit, and then later Connor came back, and then he blew out his knee against Tennessee. But Liam did start against Buffalo at center last year. Could be facing that scenario again this year. Could be.
Yeah, and you bring up something that made me realize that second game is on a Thursday, which means basically there's no practice that week.
Right, correct.
So the chances, again, if Liam starts at center in the opener, and that happens to be the time when Aaron Brewer can come back, Brewer plays game 2, then you're going to ask Eichenberg to go from center to right guard without practice that week.
Yeah,
which is Again, I asked Liam about, is he at a point where there's no major transition when he goes from one position to another? He goes, that's out the window, but still not totally ideal. Yeah. Let's move on to the next topic, which is practice. And this is where you and I are going to spar, because I saw your practice report where you mentioned the defense played well, but Tua also had a good practice. And I'm like, what the hell was my buddy Perk watching? And I thought, I made the comment to one of the other media members, actually, that I thought was probably clearly his worst practice of training camp.
Ooh, I thought, I thought Tua's worst practice was one last week. Today, he didn't have Jalen Waddle out there. There was a lot of red zone stuff out there today. I thought Tua did a good job of spreading the ball around. We saw River Craycraft with at least one good reception. We saw over the middle. We saw him going for Jonnu Smith. We saw him throwing to Durham Smythe. I think more than usual because Waddle wasn't there. So from that standpoint, I thought Tua was fine with the distribution. Some passes were a little bit high, but I don't think he was off the mark as much as he was that practice last week, where he's missing guys in the corner of the end zone. He's misfiring over the middle. I thought with what Tua had to work with and what they did today, which was a heavy red zone day, I thought Tua had a good performance. I really did.
Okay, and this is where, see what I have here? These are receipts.
Yep.
Excuse me. Not a ton of passes. You mentioned the Craycraft nice catch. The Craycraft, and let me preface this by saying this is a practice, but we're doing a podcast, and among the things that we do, we recap practice.
Yep.
If we're going to talk about practice, we're going to be honest about practice, understanding that it's one practice, so it's not that big a deal.
Yep.
But I thought Tua was really off the mark. And you mentioned the River Craycraft reception. That ball was basically at his ankle when he was wide open on a slant. That's number one. Number two, he had a pick where he tried to hit somebody on a slant who was pretty well covered. It was tipped by Saran Neal into the arms of Marcus May. And then he had another one where Kendall Fuller broke up a pass across the middle when he threw it tight that also came close on the tip to being picked off. And he had another one where those quick throws that he loves to do, where it's one quick step in the seam, while Jordan Brooks completely read him and stepped in front and easily could have had an INT. And then there were really no good passes to counter that. So I thought the whole offense was out of sync. I thought he wasn't sharp at all. It happens, and not a big deal. But I just wanted to be a smart ass and say, let's do a little rock'em sock'em.
No. And, he did have that bomb to Tyreek today, right?
That was Mike White.
Oh, yeah, that was Mike White. Tua was under a lot of pressure today also from the offensive line. The pass rush was in his face quite often. We didn't see a whole lot of the newfound agility, mobility from Tua, but there were a lot of quick passes there. Look, I thought Chop Robinson had a really good day as a pass rusher. I thought a lot of guys were in Tua's face constantly today. And look, the bottom line is I don't care about that, really. You've got to get the job done as a quarterback, and now as a highly paid quarterback. I think the defense would have won today. Maybe the score would have been like 20-14 or something like that, 20-17, because Jason Sanders had a good day. Also made 2 50-yarders. But it wasn't a great day from Tua, but I thought it was good enough to win. And if Jalen Waddle was in there, maybe you do get a victory. But the offense would have lost the game today.
Okay, we can agree to disagree. It's all good. But here's the thing: is there's some people are going to be like, "How dare you poo-poo his mobility today?" Because we had 2 other media members who are on Twitter talking about how Tua escape pressure in a red. I love your reaction. Wow. Because that was exactly mine. There was a play and there's a red zone drill where Tua had pressure. He moved very well to the right side, much more fluidly than he did at any point last year, except there are guys around him, defenders around him, who completely stop.
Yep.
And then we have a couple of media members, Furonis and Omar, who decided that he would have escaped the rush. And then he followed through with a touchdown pass to Eric Ezukama. And in my notes, I don't have touchdown pass. I have play over. Yeah. I mean, it's like, come on. And this is what happens. It's all, some of these plays in practice are open to interpretation. What's not open to interpretation is what I completely agree with my man Perk here. Yeah. Chop Robinson, I mean, hat tip. And it was 3 different things. It was a sack. It was setting the edge on a run. And to me, by far the most impressive play he had, his most impressive play of practice is the play. It had Tyreek running across the field right around the line of scrimmage. One of those rollout plays. And Tua had to throw somewhere else because Chop Robinson stayed with him the entire way. I was like, damn, that's impressive. Because at first it was like, I couldn't see it. I had the binoculars on. I was like, man, that's some good work right there. Who is it? And then I looked and it was like, I saw 44. I was like, wow. I mean, major props. And then Emmanuel Agba after practice gave him his props. And again, this is, my spiel about praise from teammates. Expect it. It's going to come, especially in training camp. Everybody's great. Everybody's fabulous. Everybody's doing a good job. But I love the specifics of those. And what Agba said is that the kid learns. He's not a talker. He listens and he learns, which is what you like to hear.
Yeah, and after one of those plays, you talk about dapping somebody up, and congratulations. I saw Calais Campbell going over and telling the rook, hey, nice job. And that had to mean a lot to Chop Robinson, and it got my attention because I don't know that we've seen Calais doing that to a whole lot of people. He's been on the field and on the sideline when the pass rush has been good. But and Calais is a great guy and a great teammate, but for him to signal out Chop and single him out after that play, I thought, wow, Calais must have really seen some stuff that Chop did that was good. Maybe there's stuff that Chop was working on with his hands or his feet. But Calais, I made a mental note of that, and that stood out to me. Yeah,
and again, beyond the fact that he recognized what was happening, the fact that he had the speed to be able to, like, I'm not going to lie and say he was like completely step by step. He was close enough to where Tua went somewhere else.
Yep.
And I don't know that in fact, I know I haven't seen a play in training camp that's impressed me as much as that one. I was like, damn, that was good. So big props to Chop Robinson, who easily would be my top performer of this particular day.
Yeah, and I want to see how Chop does. I know I might be going ahead on Saturday if he gets some reps against some first-team guys. If.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And speaking of which, we're going to close it with this. Tua was asked after practice if he wants to play Saturday night against the Washington Commanders, who will be here for a joint practice on Thursday, by the way. And he said, yes, I hope so. I'm going to have a powwow with Mike McDaniel and the leaders of the team. And it was interesting that Tua said that they basically make a decision as a group. Okay, are the guys that, the frontliners playing or they're not playing? Again, if you go by precedent under Mike McDaniel, Tua has played in game 2 the last 2 years. So I would expect him to play. I can't imagine he's going to be in there very long, though.
What offensive line do you put out there in front of Tua? Do you put Armstead out there? Is Eichenberg at center? Correct. And then how long do they go? 1 quarter? Do they go 2 possessions, 3 possessions? I mean, are you putting Tua at unnecessary risk if you have Eichenberg at center? Let's just say Rob Jones at left guard, Lester Cotton at right guard, Patrick Paul at left tackle, and Austin Jackson at right tackle. Are you putting Tua at unnecessary pass rush risk?
You can call it to where it's I don't want to say it's completely safe, but it's not an undue risk. And no, I don't think there's any chance Teron Armstead plays Saturday, but I could see the rest of the offensive.
Yeah, I would agree.
Line playing. So, but we shall see. And on that note, hope you guys enjoyed, absorbed, tolerated this episode 332B. Tomorrow we'll be back with a flush number. It'll be 333, unless I forget, as I usually do. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And as always, a big thanks to my man Chris Perkins. Perk, let's do this again tomorrow. Let's see you out there tomorrow again, right?
Yep, I'll be out there.
Sounds good. Thanks everyone. Until then, have a good one.